Hello, everyone. Here we are with episode 5, I think, of North of Reason. Today we are joined by the usual crew, Paulo Belzic.
Yeah.
Myself, I'm Sean Bombani. Sarah Robinson.
Hey.
And today joining us is a guest star, is my brother, Neil Bombani.
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be on the podcast. Thanks for having me.
This is going to be horrific because you guys sound the same.
Oh my god.
Yeah, can you change the way you speak?
Oh yeah, I'll just rewire my brain like that. My cadence will be completely different.
Just make your voice higher.
Someone talking falsetto.
What the audience should do is listen to the content of our speech, and then they should be able to differentiate us from that.
So anything that doesn't make sense is Sean, and anything that actually does make sense is Neil.
There we go. Now we have a system.
Wow. That was something.
Oh, God.
Today we're going to be talking, long awaited, we're going to be talking about the prequels.
That's
Woo.
right.
This is the meat and potatoes of this podcast thus far, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, honestly, it's the reason we decided to start this.
Is it? Oh, I think it was because we were fighting in calc class over which
Yeah.
was the worst prequel.
Yep.
Yeah.
Phantom Menace.
You're right. That's what started this. So,
we don't learn in calc.
Yeah, Miss Marcotte.
someone want to start us off?
Alright, so I think we should go chronologically.
Oh, my
Personally.
God, it's dead.
So, if anybody feels,
So starting off with Phantom Menace.
I think we should start off with the worst and get it over with.
I'm gonna push back on this chronological idea. I think we should take the prequels as a whole, and I want to hear all of your thoughts on the prequels as a whole themselves, because I think it's a 3-act tragedy.
What a
And
tragedy.
It's really, and I think
In all sense of the word.
I think the real beauty of the prequels comes from taking it as a whole. I think that's
I need
important.
an electric
So
outlet.
and I think we can go over it chronologically afterwards, but I just want to start off with prequels.
Okay.
What do y'all think?
That's fair. Sean, you want to start off?
I'll do
Because I
it.
know you have the strongest opinions
I'll
here.
do it. So, in my opinion, Sarah, be quiet.
So sorry, I'm struggling with life.
In my opinion, if you look at the prequels as a whole, okay, there is no lesser form of literature in existence.
Yikes.
Yeah.
None. It is the bottom.
Yeah, I don't know. It's never a good sign when you have absolutist extremist views off the bat. Not a good sign for nuance.
Oh, man.
Okay, to be fair, I'm exaggerating when I say that, but it is bad, okay? It's I think I've said this before. I wish, I like to pretend that I'm still living in 1985 and only the original 3 have come out.
Mhm.
I think that was a good not stepping off point, a good ending point for the series. And when George Lucas introduced the new trilogy, it just went all downhill. I think the acting was
No.
questionable in the prequels.
Ew.
I think the plot was iffy. I think obviously the effects were awful, and it made visually the whole experience was just like a train wreck, because he overuse of CGI created these ridiculous Jar Jar Binks. Even going not even looking at who Jar Jar Binks is, just looking at his appearance, it's a bit too off.
Garbage.
Things like that. I think they did bad things to elements of the series, like the combat. Look at the lightsaber battles.
Yeah.
In the original, you look at something like Return of the Jedi final fight between Vader and Luke. That's a passionate battle, right? And
Yep.
it's not just nonsense flinging around a lightsaber. It's more it's choreographed to show the conflicts of the actual
And,
characters
emotions
as they
and stuff,
conflict
yeah.
with each other. Compare with Mustafar fight, kind of flips, clips
Yeah.
and
They're
lights.
dancing.
Definitely a target and intention for the original through the fights in those, whereas in the prequels it's just kind of showing off the new CGI technology. Oh, can they not hear me?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's very faint.
Oh, okay. Well, your brother can just deal with that.
Yeah, my brother quit his job of editing, so now I have to edit it myself.
Oh, you can just deal with that. Is it because we insulted him in the last one?
No, he was just like, yeah, I don't want to deal with this. You deal with it. So now I have to go through stupid hours.
Wow.
That's a whole nother
What was
thing.
I saying?
Make this
Dancing.
a day job.
Lightsaber
You
dances.
ended your own
Oh, right.
prequel, that's good.
Yeah. So, like, that detracted from it because, you know, these climactic scenes are kind of just garbage. No. I think the writing was significantly lesser in these films. Case in point, the sand monologue.
Of course.
Case in
It's
point,
irritating.
Jar Jar Binks
It gets
existing.
everywhere.
Case in point,
What do you
like,
mean?
what's his face? Watto.
Yeah.
And just like, you have great actors like Liam Neeson playing Qui-Gon Jinn, but like
Qui-Gon.
all of his delivery is just flat. And I don't think that's a fault of the actor. It's more so just like his lines are crap. And you have character, and like Darth Vader is one of the best villains of all time, right? In the prequels, you have these garbage throwaway villains. Darth Maul has a single line in the entire trilogy has one line, and it's just, "We will destroy the Jedi," and that's it. That's all he gets. That's awful. That is awful.
But it was one of the
But-
best delivered lines.
If
And you just get all these villains that are just
Sean.
like there and then get thrown away,
Well,
like
but
Grievous.
you have to remember-
I would say the main
Dooku
villain
is alright.
I would say the main villain is Darth Sidious.
And Sean, Darth Maul gets more lines in the Clone Wars. So
We're not addressing
I-
the Clone Wars.
Well, I'm going to bring up the Clone Wars later because I think it's worth addressing.
What?
see, I actually have a person who
I'm
supports
just
me that
kidding.
the Clone Wars exists.
He's kicked out.
The Clone Wars, I mean, they were written by George Lucas. They're canon, like they're part of the
It's a
official
good
prequel
show
canon.
and movie.
It's part of the discussion for
You
sure.
should both watch it.
But all right. So I think a lot of your points I agree on. You know, I think a lot of the CGI was pretty bad. Really disappointing in how like it turned out. And granted, a lot of the CGI from that era, like you know, early 2000s, it was all pretty bad.
Which is why you shouldn't use it. But keep going.
Well, you know, George Lucas is always, like, at the time in this, you know, in the late 70s, he was, you know, big on being at the forefront of technology, and he was at the time, and he also was during the prequel era. It just happens that that technology didn't age as well. But I want to concede that point that the CGI did not age well at all, and was pretty bad. I also will agree with, you know, some really poor, like, characters and like dialogue. Jar Jar Binks, like. You'll struggle to find anyone who like will defend
Trevor
Jar Jar
Noah.
Binks.
Trevor Noah likes Jar Jar Binks. Look up Trevor Noah, Jar Jar Binks.
And-
He thinks he's the best character
And,
in
you know,
all
actually,
Star Wars.
actually, I have a friend I think who might support Jar Jar Binks a little bit, but it's because he's a goofball. And then the fight scenes, I partially agree. I think I absolutely like the fighting better in the original trilogy. You know, the fights were more emotional. They were closer to, you know, like actual sword play, like in real life. And I think that sort of realism added. I think that realism was really important in a fantasy setting. And like that last fight on Mustafar that was obscene. It was just way too long. Most of it was nonsense. There was very few, you know, emotional pauses. So that sort of stuff I want to concede on. Overall, George Lucas's directing was pretty bad. I'm incredibly disappointed with how it turned out. But what I do want to say is if you can look past all of these flaws, when there are many, you can look past the direction, the CGI, a lot of the visuals, some really cringy dialogue, if you can look past some of these points of implementation. Hey, I'm not here to say the prequels were like masterpieces, but I am here to say that there is some substantive parts of the prequels that are 100% worth appreciating, and most people I find can't quite appreciate it if they're stuck hating the parts that are worth hating, because they're like we mentioned, there are parts worth hating. But if you can get past that, you can just set that aside in your mind, then you're giving yourself the opportunity to appreciate what is worth appreciating. And what is worth appreciating is the story and the lore behind the prequels. And it's the real genius of George Lucas. Like, we all love and respect George Lucas because of his ability to construct fantasy worlds and to be able to construct these narratives that are really powerful. And I think he did do that with the prequels. The problem is the execution was so bad that no one can see it. And obviously, that means on a whole, prequels maybe aren't nearly as good as the originals, because the originals had story and execution. But that doesn't mean you can't appreciate some of the story behind the prequels. So I'm going to give you an example, right? Something that's overlooked, and there are many storylines interwoven within the prequels that are quite complex, quite sophisticated, and really beautiful. I think one of the biggest ones is the tragedy of Darth Vader and the fall of Anakin. So, we start out, right, in the Phantom Menace. You find Anakin in the Phantom Menace, and he's a kid, right? How old is he technically? What is he, 8?
10, yeah, around
something
that age.
That. We can look it up later.
Look it up right now.
And, Qui-Gon knew that he was part of the prophecy. Of course, by the end of Return of the Jedi, he fulfilled it. But at this time, who knows how it's going to turn out. Now, when he brings Anakin to the Jedi Council to pitch him to be taken as a Jedi Padawan, what do they say? What's Yoda and Ki-Adi-Mundi's response to Qui-Gon?
He's too old, because he's 9.
Exactly. He's too old. Now, where does that come from? So we saw it briefly in Empire with Yoda saying it to Luke. But if you look more into the prequels lore, and this is why I always tell Sean to please read the books, because the books are worth reading and quite good, and it really fleshes out the storyline and the canon. Anyways, what this comes from Tibetan Buddhism. So in Buddhism, there's this idea, and specifically Tibetan Buddhism, that in order to reach spiritual salvation, you have to cultivate non-attachment to everything in the world. And in Tibet, they believe that to really be a Buddhist priest and to become part of the Sangha, the Buddhist priest community, you have to start your training as a child. So in Tibet, what they do is every family gives up their firstborn son to the monks to become a monk. And it's because if a child grows up in a family, they're going to become attached to their parents, to their siblings, to family life, and they're going to start learning how to cultivate those emotional attachments. And then if you go from a family life of emotional attachment to a life of a monk, you will never be able to reach spiritual enlightenment. And then the Jedi believe the same thing. You have to start training Padawans young, because otherwise they'll never be able to follow the true Jedi path. The Jedi path includes non-attachment. It includes not cultivating love, because in order to execute justice fairly, you can't have attachments. That's why you don't bring in Padawans when they're older to be trained, because now you're giving them power and you're giving them the corrupting influence of attachment. What happens? We have young Annie. Who is he attached to? His mother. He loves his mother. He absolutely loves his mother. He's doing everything for his mother.
Right.
And he's being taken away from his mother in order to fulfill some Jedi prophecy he knows really nothing about. He wants to do it, but he misses his mother. He says that many times. He says it many times in Phantom Menace. Obviously, he says it many times in Attack of the Clones. So you can see how it's the beginning of the Jedi Council failing to fulfill their duties to protect Anakin, to protect the Jedi Order from corrupting, influencing forces of emotion and attachment. You can't bring in those Jedi. So what's the tragedy? Anakin is, unfortunately, given this position, he's given a lot of power, and he's taken away from his mother. He misses his mother. He starts having visions about his mother dying. He knows it's going to happen. It's absolutely just wrecking him emotionally, mentally during the second movie. He finally goes back against all the Jedi's wishes and finds his mother, brutalized and basically dead, dies in his arms. What do you expect to happen from a small child who's ripped from his mother's arms, taken far away, still loves her, goes back to find her dead. Of course he's going to be in anguish. Of course he's going to be like in so much pain. He lashes out, and this is obviously the beginning of the fall of Anakin Skywalker into Darth Vader, right? This is, I think, a really powerful story. I think it's really powerful how Anakin fell like that. I think it's really tragic how the Jedi Council failed the Republic and failed the Jedi Order by bringing him in, by not following protocol, simply because it was Qui-Gon's dying wish. Okay, that was the downfall right there. That was a mistake. You have someone who's powerful and who's been cultivating emotional attachment. Mother dies. We can go into like the fact that Padme is actually a replacement for his mother in his mind. He still has to have that attachment to a female character. Lucas interweaved a lot of like Freudian ideas into the story.
Sean, why are you shaking your head? Why are you shaking your head?
Freudian ideas.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Freud's greatest contribution to society was through literature, not through psychology, if I'm being honest. There's a lot of great Freudian literature out there. So I think this is a really powerful story, Anakin's fall, the interrelation between attachment and the Jedi Code. I think this is good stuff. I don't know, what do y'all think about this?
See, okay, so my take on the prequels overall, some of your stuff, I agree with most of your stuff. Like the story, I like the ideas and the concepts, the execution. So for me, when I saw Phantom Menace after watching my favorite movie, Return of the Jedi, as I've previously stated, I was just like, what is this dumpster fire? It was just so bad. That is the one movie that you like. Someone has to make me watch that movie. Out of all the Star Wars movies, Phantom Menace is just so boring and so unnecessary. And then you get into Attack of the Clones, which the dialogue and stuff, which we'll get into, it's trash. But at least like the movie's somewhat more interesting than Phantom Menace, so I can get behind that. And then Revenge of the Sith, I'm pretty solid on. Like I think that's a pretty good movie, comparatively. So overall, I think the prequels progressively get better, but overall they're way less than the original trilogy. And some of the stuff I can't get behind. That's my take on it. Sarah?
I feel like I don't even have a take on it anymore. I'm so confused. It's such a struggle for me to get through any of them, to be honest. I don't know. I feel like it sucks because I agree with Neil that the story is really good, but for me the execution is just so poor in all of them, especially the last two, that I don't know.
Wait, so you liked Phantom Menace over the last two?
Because I feel like the acting just undermines the storytelling.
But the acting in Phantom Menace is just non-existent. There's like nothing in it.
I don't know. For some reason, I enjoyed it more than in the other two.
I read in an interview once that entire movie is actually just pieces of cardboard with like faces drawn on them. There's no actual actors. It's just,
You're
like,
right.
An innovative take on. Like,
Yeah.
No, but actually, like, I think Neil is onto something when he says that when he maybe pitched the overall arcs of the characters and arc of the story, at that point it was compelling. But the second they stepped off from that, like, it no longer became compelling. I think the secondary elements, like, you're saying you can simply just look over them to see that the heart of gold, but I think that the heart of gold just, like, melts into garbage when, like, you know, everything around the heart is garbage. I think it's like, I think it's unfair to say, hey, if you forget about the movie and just think of it as instead think of it as a, like, watered down synopsis, then it's good.
Or like the screenplay, probably.
Right.
Well, it's like, I mean, again, I don't disagree that the execution was disappointing on many accounts. But, and, you know, I don't want to characterize it as simply looking past it. I think at any work of art, you have to be able to look at every single part of it and judge every part, like, on its own merits.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't think that there is, like, a point in which some part of a piece of art is just so, like, poorly executed or bad that it can now, like, somehow metaphysically, like, move to another part of the art and, like, corrupt it and destroy it and, like, deface it. I think there are different things. And again, I want to get back into, like, why I always push on to, like, start reading the books and stuff and to start looking beyond just the movies. It's because the core material is actually legitimately good. Everything that George Lucas didn't directly direct himself ended up becoming, like, pretty awesome. And it's a lot of fun to start exploring the rest of the prequel world because it's actually really great and compelling. And it's kind of sad that, you know, the failure of the prequel movies to really execute prevents people from appreciating the world that was created. You know,
Sean, are you going to comment on how we called it art?
it's an act of creation. I mean, it's art.
If I were to make fun of that, it would be in jest.
Okay. Because if me or Sarah said that, you would have been like, those aren't art. Those are trash.
And I mean, I understand the comedic point of just like it's trash, but you know, what I really came here today for is to be an advocating voice for what is good about the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not here to try to like explain away what's bad about it. I agree that there's a lot that's bad,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a lot that's good.
So, I think the thing I disagree with you on is when you say that they can't intermingle with each other. I think that these pieces of a work are inherently intertwined, especially execution and the idea. I think they are very much so entwined, and the idea becomes muddy, and it just like it just becomes a poor experience with the lesser execution. And also, you say that it's like I disagree with the idea that like. Are you saying that the prequel movies are better as a result of the supplementary books?
I'm saying the prequel world is 100% worth exploring and appreciating. And I know that if we're all like Star Wars geeks here, I know like you would all get like a lot of satisfaction and enjoyment by starting to explore it if you can just get past the fact that Jar Jar Binks is so fucking annoying. Like if you can get past these things, there's a lot. I don't know. There's just like there's legitimately more Star Wars in existence right now that is good and that you just aren't looking at. That seems ridiculous to me if you're a Star Wars fan. Like, I don't understand that at all.
Oh, see, I get that. Like, that's why I watch the Clone Wars TV show and Clone Wars movies and stuff.
Oh my god, Paul.
Dude, I'm going to keep pushing that, because you guys definitely should watch that stuff. Because that stuff was solid.
I'm going to agree with Paul. The Clone Wars, there's a lot of great stuff in the Clone Wars. It's like, I rewatched it all last summer. It was awesome.
Like, I mean, there are always a few episodes where it's just like, do we really need that? No. But, like, overall, it was a good series. The movie was okay. I mean, you introduced a bunch of new awesome characters, like Ahsoka and stuff.
Ahsoka's awesome. I love Ahsoka.
So, yeah, get on that, Sean and Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, do we want to talk about individual movies now? I think we've covered
Okay.
the overall.
Let's do it.
Sure. Who wants to start off on Phantom Menace?
Phantom Menace. Oh my god. Sarah, you know what? You get to go first. You get to justify why you think it's better than the other two.
I mean, it's by a very slim margin. I don't know. I prefer origin stories, to be honest, and I don't know, comparatively to the other two, it's just my favorite to see Anakin as a little kid. That's really the only reasoning I
Never
have
heard
for
that
it.
one before.
So you just don't like Hayden Christian?
Oh, yes. Oh, that is entirely it.
And you would rather this, like, toddler, like, waddling around.
He's cute.
This is pod racing. Yeah. Phantom Menace for me. I actually have Attack of the Clones below Phantom Menace. I think Attack of the Clones is the worst one.
I agree.
But are we still talking about Phantom Menace?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay,
let's go around.
Keep going.
Okay. Yeah. Phantom Menace, Jar Jar is in it for some reason, and he also gets a lot of screen time.
Yeah, no, I know. He's just a distraction to the overall plot, I think.
Like, and
No.
and it just becomes this, like, ridiculous pacing issue where you have them, like, where we have them, like, fleeing for their life from this giant eel, and at the same time he's Jar Jar's in there, like, screaming like he's like 10 years old. And, like, again, they're running away from the Trade Federation. The droids that they've sent in secret are hunting them down, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, and they're hiding out in this underwater palace. And then the general guy goes up to Jar Jar, like, "You were banished. You did big doo-doo. Why are you back?" Like, this is actually insane.
I feel
I'm
like-
fine with, like,
They were trying to introduce some humorous factor that didn't necessarily to relate to a culture that we understand.
and I'm fine
but,
with this. I'm fine with comedy.
But it was so just yeah.
So they definitely had some pacing issues. They definitely had the movie had emotional issues. And not just Jar Jar Binks, other things like the whole Tatooine thing with Watto and Sebulba and all those, like, ridiculous characters popping up, and stuff like that. It's just so awful. And again, the acting. I don't like Qui-Gon. I think he's boring. I don't like Darth Maul. I think Darth Maul is, like, the worst character in this entire series because he has one line and it's the most generic evil person line you could possibly have.
Yeah.
He looks cool.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a double-sided lightsaber.
Gotta love that lightsaber.
But that's it. That's it. That's all he has. Is he physically looks cool.
He has horns.
He's from Dathomir.
What else can I say about Phantom Menace?
It was just boring.
It was boring.
It was lame.
Wasn't really any. I don't think there was ever much tension. Like, even when
I
Qui-Gon
can see
died,
that.
like, that's supposed to be a callback to Obi-Wan, but Obi-Wan was, like,
Cool.
he was a character
actually
that
liked
that
Obi-Wan.
I cared about more.
Mhm.
Qui-Gon, again, I love Liam Neeson. He did a great Ra's al Ghul in Batman.
again.
But it flops here.
Yeah, no, I'll agree with
It
that.
flops.
Yeah, mostly fair points so far.
Right.
Alright, you good, Sean?
Yeah.
Alright, so here are my blaring issues with Phantom Menace.
Oh.
In the entire movie, there's only 2 scenes that I like. The first 5 minutes when the ship blows up in the hangar. And then Darth Maul fight scene at the end. That's about it. The rest of it's just lame and boring. So pod racing.
Oh,
Why did we
my
spend so much time on
God.
pod racing?
That was so long.
Why? And then
Oh, well, I found it entertaining, actually.
Stop.
I like the race, yeah.
I was gonna say, I'm not even joking. Like, I don't know. I thought it was pretty cool.
Why?
It was so
I don't-
long.
It was just so.
No, I agree that it was
So
needlessly,
extra. Oh.
but I just thought it was interesting.
And then the entire purpose of the movie is just the Trade Federation has a blockade around Naboo.
Mm-hmm.
This has nothing to do with any of the other Star Wars stuff at all. Because after this, we segue into the, like, the droid army and the Separatists and all this stuff. The Trade Federation had nothing to do with the Separatists at this point. Like, why do we have this just random blockade? And Darth Sidious, it just seems like, for me at least, it seems needless. Like, why do we need this? You can respond. Go right ahead. Jump right in.
Another point I'd like to add about why Phantom Menace sucks is how it negatively impacted the lore of the series. Midichlorians, like, that was George Lucas's attempt to make it more sciencey and to like quantify the Force, which takes out the sort of allure of it.
The mystery.
The mystery and also just like that binding, almost godly essence that it had. It turned into like, well, he said it was bacteria, right?
Microscopic organisms.
Wow. And then other things, Watto. They show up on the planet, and Qui-Gon Jinn tries to force mind trick Watto into just giving them the part they needed to escape. And Watto's response was, "Oh, force mind tricks don't work on my species, because that's how my species works." That's so, like, that just ruined the Force lore. The Force is this all-binding force between all living and non-living things, between me and the tree and the rock. It binds us all together, except for Watto's miss. He's immune. That's absurd.
Mm-hmm.
That is absurd.
So
Other problems I had.
Yeah.
So I looked it up because we were talking about Anakin's age earlier. So Anakin is age 9 during this. Padme is 14.
Yeah.
Natalie Portman in that movie does not look 14.
No, she
at all.
literally looks 25.
She looks like she's 25.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Anakin is like continuously growing up in these movies, and Padme's like the same
Yeah, she
in all
looks the
three.
exact same. Like, what? Like, get a new actress. Like, get a different actress to play the actual ages of these people. That's why I'm okay with, like, Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, because she actually looks like she's supposed to be that age. In this movie, she looks 25 and she's 14.
Mm.
So that's a nitpicky thing that I just think is stupid. So, I'll probably come up with more things, but Neil, you can take it away.
So, the majority of the critiques so far, I agree with. There are three though that I disagree with. I'll work backwards. So what you just said, Paul, about Natalie Portman being looking a lot older. I'm going to refer back to what I was talking about earlier with the sort of Freudian psychology bit.
Yep.
I do believe that George Lucas wrote Padme to be a psychological replacement for Anakin's mother. And if you look at how Padme refers to Anakin in the first two movies, she's often saying "Oh, you're just a kid." "Oh, you'll in the second movie, "Oh, you'll always be that same little kid that I met on Tatooine." There's this maternal relationship that she has with him, and I think that's the Freudian aspect is reinforced by the fact that Anakin ends up impregnating her by the third movie, and I think that's a meaningful part of this problem of attachment that happens with these younger people.
But you wouldn't just say it was George Lucas being lazy and not wanting it in another actress?
I mean, we could we could argue about actress choices and whatever. I like Natalie Portman. I've had a crush on Natalie Portman since I was a little kid, so I'm just probably gonna be biased towards her. But so working backwards to what Sean said earlier about the midichlorians. I think this is a part that's very commonly mischaracterized and misunderstood.
Don't tell me about the support midichlorians.
So I'm about to reframe midichlorians, okay? I agree that the originals as they were, having the Force be a sort of mystical thing, I like that feeling of the Force better, that aura of that. I think that sort of mystical element it adds to a science fiction fantasy genre.
Yep.
It's just such a beautiful combination. I absolutely love it. And I think when Qui-Gon brings up the midichlorians and describes it, what this really is George Lucas critiquing the the over bureaucratization and technocratization of the Jedi Council at the end of the Republic era, and B, critiquing how modern society has sort of taken these more like religious spiritual concepts and sort of ignored them in the face of like new scientific developments, when really like they can kind of be the same, you know, like you can integrate like spiritual worldviews with scientific worldviews. Now, I say this because if you have looked more into the prequel world, you will see that this is a big problem with the Jedi Order and with the Republic towards the end of the Republic era, is that the bureaucracies have gotten so big, the technology and like the infrastructure around the technological regime has gotten so big that and the Jedi Council and the Jedi Order themselves have sort of gone in bed with big technology within the galaxy, to the point where it's even influenced how they view the Force, and they start moving away from, because if you look at the old Republic eras and like you look back, you know, tens of thousands of years within the Star Wars universe, originally the Force was viewed spiritually and mystically, and over time what's always happened is, as technology has grown and as Jedi have changed how they view the Force, because it's all about how you view the Force. The Force is there. It's just like how you describe it and like teach it to the Padawans. Whenever they start viewing it more technologically speaking, more biologically, when they start like, you know, pinpointing, oh, it's these microorganisms, and they lose that mystical element, somehow that change in perspective tends to divorce them from the Force itself, and they become weaker with the Force. And the Sith have always taken advantage of that, and have always taken over whenever that happens. So when it happens in the prequel era, it's actually like a repeat of a long pattern of the Jedi Order failing to tap into the true essence of the Force, over technologicalizing and bureaucratizing their like implementation of the Jedi Order, and it always has led to their downfall. And this is like one of many times in which the Sith have taken advantage of that.
I can get behind that. I mean, I feel like, yeah, that is a good representation of the Jedi Order moving away from its roots, and that ultimately culminates in Revenge of the Sith, where the Jedi Order collapses. So yeah. I can get behind that. That's a fair point.
I think that's just a point you'll kind of miss out if you haven't really looked into the rest of the lore.
Yeah.
Because the movies, again, like one of many failures, like they like throw in all this great lore stuff, but it's just there visually. So if you don't actually know it, you have no idea what you're watching. You know. And then the latter part I wanted to point out was in The Phantom Menace. Paul, you said the whole like blockade with the Trade Federation.
Yeah, I just felt like that was unnecessary. You know? It was just like, oh, this one planet, like.
So I actually believe that the strongest part of The Phantom Menace, and one of the stronger parts of the entire prequel era, are the genius political maneuvers by Darth Sidious to gain power. So Sidious Palpatine was a senator on Naboo. That's why we're talking about Naboo right now, because he's gained localized political power in Naboo, but he aspires to be, you know, the Dark Lord of the Galaxy. He aspires to like ultimate power, and if you're playing the power game, you see where you are, and then you just kind of move up step by step. So he's playing all of these sides at the same time with no one knowing that he's orchestrating this entire thing. He's the one who's supporting the Trade Federation and encouraging them to move on this, to move on Naboo, to, you know, increase their like profits through like they're basically representative of like corporate like big money sort of interests in American politics. So he's sort of influencing them to attack his own planet where he's a senator. Meanwhile, he's playing senator to his own Nabooians, saying like, I'm doing my best, I'm here in the Senate, you know, it's all a mess, I'm gonna try my best. You know, he told the Trade Federation to kill the Jedi, ended up failing, so like, you know, the story kind of continues there. And, you know, I think one of a real indicator of his intelligence is when Queen Amidala manages to get off the planet and make her way to Coruscant, that wasn't part of the plan. And he was instantly able to take this scenario that wasn't part of his plan and turn it to his benefit. He's like, I'm going to get Queen Amidala to call for a vote of no confidence, And I've already been here playing the political game for years, setting up all my connections so that I can win the next election. And he was able to orchestrate that like instantly once Amidala was there, even though that wasn't part of the plan, and gain power. And I think, you know, his many political maneuvers throughout the prequels are what really are really interesting. Like the political drama, I'm a huge fan of. And I think Darth Sidious is a really like intelligent power player, and his rise to power is absolutely amazing. And his role in the fall of the Republic is like a really powerful testament to the power that the dark side actually has, and how you're able to yield it to influence the world around you. And I like this game. I think it's a really clever maneuver, the Trade Federation. I think it's like fascinating that he came up with it.
I mean, my response to that is just, for people who aren't as interested in the political stuff, which, I mean, I guess I can see how you are interested in the political moves, but for regular audiences who aren't analyzing the politics of the stuff, it's just lame. It's lame. Like, it's like, overall, just the scenes and just the outline of the entire movie is just boring.
Well,
like,
I don't know. I mean, if you look at science fiction as a genre in American media since the mid-20th century, politics has been like one of the defining aspects of science fiction, is that there's a lot of political play. Like Star Trek, there's a ton of politics in Star Trek. You know, if you look back at like science fiction, like manga and anime in Japan, like that was a defining factor of science fiction, was that you have like the Gundam series and all these other series that are they're political in nature. And much of the science fiction that came out of the mid-20th century, and much of like the serial comics that George Lucas was influenced by, those are all politically engaged science fiction narratives. So I think he's part of like the tradition of science fiction by including politics, and I would say it's the exception for a science fiction fan to not be interested in it.
and then that's where we get into the thing with execution versus idea. So again, it's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen politics be integrated into a bunch of different novels and stuff, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Beautifully. 1984 by Orwell, Star Trek, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get Phantom Menace, and like we've been saying, the execution of the politics integrated into science
Mm-hmm.
fiction is.
I think ultimately, the disagreement in ideas we have consistently keep boiling down to, you think that ideas can be appreciated independently of execution,
But as a whole, they don't work together.
and then I think that the ideas are inherently like worse because they're executed poorly. Because they are executed so poorly, you can't actually convey these ideas to an audience.
I mean, like, obviously I agree, like, in order for ideas to truly be appreciated by other people,
Mm-hmm.
the execution is absolutely crucial. But what I'm saying is that there are many ways to look at the prequels and to look at, like, that era of Star Wars. And one of the ways integrated, and if you look at it from an integrated standpoint, it's kind of disappointing. But that's not the only way to look at it. I think to be able to analyze it from multiple perspectives is what gives you the sort of like joy, and like will start revealing the appreciation, what's to be appreciated of the prequels. Again, read the books, and I'm saying because it's canon, it's a lot of it. All the story is George Lucas's story. This isn't like fan fiction. This is George Lucas coming up with all of the plot points. And then, if we're talking about execution, how he failed to execute while directing, he didn't make the same mistake. He didn't with the books. He didn't write them himself. He hired professional novelists to write them, but it were all his ideas, and that's why they were executed so well. It's a huge disappointment for prequels that he decided to direct them himself, and let's just say he decided to direct them himself, but the real disappointment is the team that he like surrounded himself for the production of Phantom Menace, and moving forward got better over time, but he surrounded himself with yes men. He surrounded himself with fanboys, basically, and that was kind of his criteria. If you wanted to work on Phantom Menace, you better be a George Lucas fanboy. So he only picked out the fanboys from the film production industry, and they're all there fanning over him. So everything that he said and did, they're like, good job, George, like, this is the best. And they just sort of went with it, assuming that he's this genius who's going to craft it, when he's not this singular genius. No great work no great production like the original Star Wars production is just George Lucas. You have a whole team of really creative and really skilled people that work with George to make those movies so great. And he failed to create a good team around him for the prequels, and that's why the execution was so bad. But it's the same George Lucas from the original trilogy. It's the same genius, like his same like ability to craft these worlds. It's all still there. It's all still there to be appreciated. And it's like you have to get past these little things, and don't just stick with the movies. Though I do think there's a lot to love about the movies. If you're looking at the story, go into the rest of the world, like explore, have fun. Like it really is worth getting into. It's not worth just writing off. It really isn't.
Another thing that I had a problem with Phantom Menace was just the appearance of Yoda and Yoda's manner in the Jedi Temple. Because you come off of Return of the Jedi and Empire Strikes Back, and you've got Yoda as they were using a puppet, and he looked like, for a puppet, he looked really good. Like, he looked like a believable species, a believable character. Did a great job establishing that he is this wise old Jedi Master. And then, bam, you got Phantom Menace Yoda, and the CGI is awful. To be generous, it's awful.
So, real quick, the original show airing of Phantom Menace was a puppet Yoda.
Okay.
Afterwards they brushed in CGI.
Okay, well, the brushed in stuff is atrocious.
I remember Puppet Yoda being like not as good in Phantom Menace.
Yeah, I will concede the puppet Yoda in Phantom Menace was I don't know, it was like it's definitely a different puppet. I don't know if it's an aspect of we just like the original better.
It was just bad, and like his voice and all the above was just like just to
I'm
me.
Looking at this, you can edit this in later, Paul. That's Puppet Yoda in Phantom Menace.
Yeah, no, please get out.
And he looks like some rubber cast that someone threw together in half an hour. And this is Yoda in the original trilogy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Original trilogy Yoda
is
is that's amazing.
I
Yeah.
trust that guy.
Yes, I trust this wise being.
I do not trust.
This
I assume the other one just
I
took my
bought
wallet.
this from iParty for $5.
Why does he look like old Frodo from the Lord of the Rings?
It's just bad. Like that.
Oh,
Like-
he looks like Smeagol.
It just took away from the movie for me.
Right.
Like,
Okay.
let's see, what any other.
I mean,
things?
overall, Yoda's role in the prequels was disappointing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I
Oh.
mean, in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, he was better. In Phantom Menace,
I'm upset that he had a weapon.
Yeah,
I
don't
think
like it
something
either.
that set him apart in the originals was that he didn't have a lightsaber. He was like a Buddha figure. He's
Yeah.
peaceful.
Yeah.
Now suddenly, Attack of the Clones. Oh my God, Mustafar! I was complaining about the flips. This is a whole other level. All he does is flip.
Yeah, that's one of my least favorite parts.
All he
of
does.
everything.
That was a really bad voice crack. All he does is backflips, and
Yeah.
that's it. While holding a lightsaber, and that's how he fought Count Dooku. It was awful.
It should have just been a force battle. If you're
That
gonna
would've
have
been
him battle,
amazing.
it should have just been force battle.
Even better if Count Dooku had his lightsaber, but Yoda still fended him off just with the Force.
Yeah.
That would have fit his character so much better.
Or you know what? I feel like Dooku would have put away his lightsaber once Yoda came by, and it would have just been a battle of the Force, because a huge part of the Sith, pride is that they become more powerful in the Force, especially offensively, by joining the dark side, by
Right.
tapping into that power, and he would have been eager to show that to Yoda.
Anything else for Phantom Menace, guys?
The ending scene was.
Oh, what? You didn't like the parade?
It's just like,
The music.
what a bad
On
way
board.
to conclude anything.
Yeah.
A parade. It's like a
The
boring
orb.
parade, and he holds up this random orb, which
they-
is supposed to be a peace symbol, but
Yeah, and they're
It's
trying
just
to
an
they're
orb.
trying to lark to the ending of original Star Wars.
Yeah,
like
that
this
was
ceremony.
I said this a few weeks ago. This last week. No, it was 2 weeks
Oh,
ago.
no, it was 2 weeks
that
ago.
That's a bad ending.
Yeah.
Like, they did that because they didn't know if the series would continue. They didn't do that because it was a good way to
Yeah.
conclude the movie.
Yeah.
So why did they bring it back?
Didn't they also do it in Force Awakens? What was the ending scene in Force Awakens?
I don't remember ending scene of Force Awakens.
No, it was just
I was gonna say it's her handing the lightsaber.
Oh, you're
to
right.
Luke.
It's
Oh
lightsaber,
yes,
you're right,
and then
you're
Luke
right.
turns around.
Was there
Okay.
any sort of ceremony in Force Awakens? towards
Nope.
the end?
Not yet.
No.
No, it just the thing blows up and it cuts immediately to them getting
Well,
off the map
Finn's
from
in
R2.
the
Yeah.
coma. And,
Yeah. Not
Yeah.
a huge fan of the new ones, but
Oh, we already talked about
yeah,
that.
I know. Just wanted to throw that.
Honestly, like we didn't have a lot of bad. Like we did have some bad stuff to say about the new ones, but like overall, we all like them.
Yeah.
I think it's like the inverse of the prequels, well executed, but then like the story behind it is just like, that's fine.
Yeah. Let's see.
I think that's all I have to say about
Yeah,
Yeah,
Attack of the
that's-
Clones.
Oh well, do you want to talk about the space battle?
Oh right,
Where Anakin-
toddler in a spaceship and he
Yes.
wins.
Well, okay, well, he's not a toddler, but
Right, so that was kind of ridiculous. Where you have all these trained pilots are going up against this like freaking battle station,
people
and
are
then he just
dying.
flies in, and he's just like, wee.
well, you know he.
Woo,
You know,
we win.
if you had watched the pod racing
Yeah.
scene earlier in the
Obviously proved
movie,
himself.
you would understand that
Yes.
kid is a beast.
Again,
Because-
pacing issues.
Pod racing-
Emotionally, like
Pod Racer translates to Naboo Starfighter.
It's the same buttons.
It's not the same button.
He's also
man.
he's incredibly powerful with the Force. I mean, he's the Jesus figure. He was, virgin birth.
It was. Oh.
Yeah,
That was
okay.
that was the worst space
when
battle
you
of the
cheat on
entire
your
series.
husband and make a whole religion.
No, he really
At
was.
the Virgin
she
Mary.
was really impregnated by the Force.
Okay.
Okay.
The real
that is canon. That is canon.
Yeah, though the real controversy is some claim, if you know more about the prequel lore, that
Oh.
that Sidious himself used the Force to impregnate her.
What? That's ridiculous.
That's rape.
That's ridiculous. Oh my god.
Because Sidious has the ability to create life with the Force.
Oh my.
But let's not get into that because
That's stupid. Alright, can we talk about the droid battle with the Gungans on Naboo? What was that?
Also silly.
Yeah.
Also
What
like
was
It was
Yeah.
so cute.
again, what's up with the orbs in this movie?
It's really like circles.
What?
They're
It is-
pleasing.
And again, this whole movie emotionally just dissonant. It's just like again, big droid battle, impending armies. And Jar Jar's running around like clinging to like the turrets.
I don't know. I think that's a pretty appropriate reaction.
No.
It's the end of the world, man.
Oh, and then the throne room like fight scene. We didn't care about that. Like we didn't care if she won back the throne room.
Yeah.
It was just lame. Like that's the only way I can describe this movie was lame. And meaningless. Like it was just a meaningless movie to me. Like I could watch like Attack of the Clones, and at least I feel like there's some merit to watching it. Like I know you guys feel differently, but I feel like there was some merit to watching this. This one I was just like I don't care.
well, let's talk about Attack of the Clones.
I think that's a good transition.
Let's segue into Attack of the
So
Clones.
I also find Attack the Clones more watchable because I laugh at how bad it is. It's like Sharknado. Sharknado is awful. That's why people watch it.
I've
That-
never seen Sharknado.
It's a good movie.
You're not missing
Wait,
out.
So first one was good. Second one sucked. Don't even watch the second
I'm
one.
sorry.
Third one was good. Fourth one was good.
Wait.
Fifth one was
Wait.
good.
There's 5 Sharknadoes.
Dude, I think there's 6. There's 6. And the 6th one they set up time travel at the end. So we have
So we might have more. We just haven't gotten to that point in time yet.
Oh, it's great. No, the 5th one's great because they make a
Oh.
bunch of Star Wars. Or no, the 4th one. The 4th one's the one where they make a bunch of Star Wars jokes.
Okay.
Oh,
In any case, kind of
sorry.
sidetracked a little bit.
Just don't watch the second one. The second one's bad.
I have so many problems with how they set up the love in this movie.
Oh, dude, I pulled up a bunch of awful quotes. Do you want me to read them?
Everything is so forced.
Ready?
Yes, it's
No
so
pun.
forced.
Ready? Here we go. I'm haunted by the kiss that you should have never given me.
Right, and that's in like that's like by the fireplace
Yes.
on the beautiful planet.
And it's
where they're dancing in the fields and they like roll with each other down the hill with the flowers and they're laughing.
Right here.
That's so cliche. That is. Ugh.
We used to come here for school retreat. We would swim to that island every day. I loved the water. We used to we used to lie in the sand and let the sun dry us and try to guess the names of the birds singing.
That is. Who wrote this movie?
Nicholas Sparks.
Wow, Nicholas Sparks.
You are in my very soul, tormenting me.
No, like.
They're Romeo and Juliet.
Yes.
Star-crossed lovers to the max. Infatuation.
Now that I'm with you again, I'm in agony. My heart is beating, hoping that my kid will not become a scar.
That's, wow.
So
compared to Han and Leia, where they got
I love
more.
you. I know.
They got more subtle development, and the culmination was "I love you, I know," and that was it.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating.
And it gets everywhere.
So I mean, I agree. I mean, I think it obviously plays a pivotal role in the plot. Is like the scenes were way too long, and like poorly written.
And
one thing I will say though is that if you watch the deleted scenes for Attack of the Clones,
oh god, you
they're-
gotta get all of the lore. If you guys knew the expanded lore of the deleted scenes,
if you watch the deleted scenes, they're like, I get so mad when I watch deleted scenes because deleted scenes are better than the movie. Okay. And
Yeah.
we need to talk about the
honestly.
deleted scenes from Revenge of the Sith then.
We'll get
because-
there. But there are like some like actually like decent like moments of like romance development in the deleted scenes that, and you can kind of see where it was placed, and it would have made things like better at least, and by themselves pretty good.
I
And
thought
it's
we
like
had-
why were they cut out? Like there's this great scene where like they go to Padme's house and like meet her parents, and they go into her room, her bedroom, and she's like showing Anakin like different like photos of like her past, and there's at one point where Anakin actually goes off with Padme's father and starts walking around in the garden. They have like a conversation, and this movie is better. Like what? Like why isn't this in the
Yeah,
original
hold
in the
on.
final cut? Like this is a way better movie, way better romance development. Who the fuck cut this out? Like, but I mean overall still the romance like wasn't great.
Yeah.
It wasn't great.
And another thing, why is Padme into this guy?
No.
Okay, they're on. Okay, so Anakin has that whole monologue about his mother dying and about how he went into the camp and slaughtered
And
all the
women
people.
and the children.
He slaughtered all the women and the children. They're animals, so I slaughtered them again. He, like that is very like psychopathic.
Well, it's because
And 2 or 3 scenes later, maybe they follow up with them kissing as they enter the arena. I love you, Anakin.
I thought we
Our-
just had decided not to fall in love and be forced to live a lie, and that it would destroy our lives. Kiss.
What? You have to remember that really she's his mother, and mothers love unconditionally. I'm serious. This is like a big part of the relationship is that she's his mother.
Oh my god.
That's why it's like this. This is more of a maternal relationship than anything.
Unconditional
But-
positive regard.
Stop. No psychology. I don't want to take that exam Thursday. Stop.
I'm sorry.
Oedipus complex. This is Oedipus complex. That's what this is.
Yeah, it is. You're right.
Sean, are you finding a newfound respect for these movies?
Keep going. Can someone have another point, please? I need to process that.
I don't have, like I said, I don't have as big of a problem with Attack of the Clones.
Oh, the climax. Again.
The battle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
it's really-
every single like
Yeah.
their goal with that battle. Their one goal was to get as many lightsabers on screen at the same time as possible.
See, I
It
didn't
is
have a problem
so,
with Geonosis. I thought
it's
it
so
was,
silly.
I thought okay. So the arena fight, yeah, that was kind of ridiculous. But like the actual after part where we introduced the clones and stuff, that was kind of cool.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't have a huge problem with the Geonosis fight. they maybe went a little overboard with every single lightsaber.
Yeah.
But I
And
you
you saw
know,
the
but, like,
random Jedis that were like, "Who's that?"
but I do think it's important to realize that at this era, end of the Republic, there were a lot of Jedi. Jedi Order was really big, and again, that was actually one of the contributing factors to Jedi Order's downfall, is that they got too big and too bloated. But there were a lot of Jedi.
Also, aren't lightsabers supposed to be rare?
Yeah,
No,
so
but they're Jedi, so.
No, you
But-
you create your lightsaber like as part of your Padawan journey.
And if you would watch the Clone Wars
Oh my
TV
God.
show, there's an entire story arc about
Yep,
that.
and it's good. It's really good actually.
That one was okay, but
We can talk
Debatable.
about it.
Other thing, there were more silly things. We talked about the Yoda fight.
but Yoda showed off that it was cool.
This planet is missing on the map. Where can I possibly find where this bullet came from? Of course, the diner guy. This guy flipping burgers at the diner. He'll know. And he goes, and diner guy knows exactly which planet it's from. And it's
a
never
Camino
explored again.
Saver dog.
That is forgotten.
Cloners on Camino.
We don't know who Diner Guy is. We don't know why. What led to
No,
this.
Just
that
south
just
of the
goes to
Rishi Line,
show
and then
the
it is
American
never
public
addressed.
school system. Because this guy is wicked intelligent, and he's flipping burgers.
So one of my big disappointments with the Clone Wars is Count Dooku, or Attack of the Clones, because
Really? I actually think he was like the most solid prequel villain.
So I agree actually, but
Oh.
if you watch Clone Wars, he was like pretty good in Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Like his character was really fleshed out throughout Clone Wars. He was the main villain basically throughout the entire series, and
Right, yeah.
and they've got more into like the political aspects of like what sort of like, you know, what his role is as a leader within the separatist movement, and like the sort of political power plays that he would make, influencing different planets to make different decisions. They really showed what a leader he was during the Clone Wars. And Attack of the Clones, they don't really get into that enough.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I mean, Count Dooku was a solid villain. Grievous overall, I think, was a cooler villain.
Uh-huh.
Like, I think his backstory was cooler. I don't know if you guys know that Sean and Sarah, you didn't know his backstory about how, like, you probably don't, but like
No, we do
Palpatine
not.
like destroyed his ship. Like, he was a fighter pilot, and then Palpatine destroyed his ship, and then he rebuilt him as a cyborg. So I think his backstory is cooler, and it makes him a cooler villain. If you actually know that.
His lair in Clone Wars, like
Yeah.
all of like the stuff he would collect.
No, his lair in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
On
I think
point.
that's a good transition into Revenge of the Sith.
Oh, I don't think we're done talking about Attack of the Clones. How do you feel about Zam and Padme's assassination?
I think it was strange how they didn't see the slugs coming until like they were there.
Yeah.
Like and like at the same time, it's like they were suddenly like, oh,
Yeah.
did you feel that? I felt slugs.
I'll tell you what though, I liked the scene in the club.
I was
Hey, you wanna buy
like
some Death
I'm,
Sticks?
I'm not gonna
You don't
complain
wanna sell
about
me Death Sticks.
I'm not gonna
I don't
complain
wanna
about the
Death
club.
Sticks.
I think they lingered too much on the chase on the cars.
Yeah.
The speeders.
Yeah, the speeders.
Again, I enjoyed that part.
See, I like that part. I think that part's cool.
Yeah, I don't have a huge problem with those parts.
The introduction was alright.
Alright.
Like
alright.
I thought it, like they lingered on it, but it wasn't that bad.
So basically, your main, you Sarah and Sean, your main gripes with this movie were the emotion stuff between Padme.
Again, yeah, that's the big thing for sure. And then also just like the direction that they take some of the lore, like Diner Guy, like Yoda, like you know, and then visual effects they do, like Genosis.
And then another thing I want to mention is it gets way better in the third movie, but you start to see Palpatine grooming Anakin in this movie, and you know if you watch the first scene that Palpatine's in this movie, you realize it's actually him that sets him up with Padme. He's orchestrating this whole thing. He knows that their relationship's going to deepen if they spend more time together, and he makes sure that happens. He insists against Padme and Padme's security's protest that two Jedi watch watch over Padme for protection. And not only since Two Jedi, he specifically says Obi-Wan and his young Padawan. He sets that up, and he knows it's going to be Anakin who's watching her.
Mere exposure effect.
Yep. Stop. Psychology. No.
He begins grooming him also. He starts to say, you know, you're powerful, like, you know, high hopes for you. I see you going somewhere. Like, he's being the sort of affirmative sort of father figure to Anakin that, and with Obi-Wan, like, is more sort of trying to mold him and, like, critiquing him constantly to try to get him to be a better Jedi. Whereas, you know, Palpatine comes in and just, like, has nothing but praises.
How do you guys feel about Jango Fett and the origin of Boba? Yeah,
Jango was there.
Yeah.
I like Jango Fett.
I mean,
And I like the idea of the clones like themselves. I think Kamino was a decent introduction of the clones.
I was gonna say I thought it was a good addition.
Right.
Mhm.
I think it's strange how like the Jedi question, hey, where did these clones come from? I don't know. And then later on in the movie, Yoda is just very willing to use these clones in that final fight.
Yeah.
Like he just sort of does it. Like he just none of them questioned why are these clones there.
Right.
I mean, they did question it, but they didn't question it in their actions. They just used it.
And then they start to
Which is
question
silly.
it in that story arc of the Clone Wars episode.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe if you watch that.
Should we go into the next
My
one?
ride's here.
Okay, do you need to go, Sarah?
No, I just no.
The only last thing, well, actually, how did you guys feel about the Death Star plans being in?
Oh, just that brief shot?
Yeah, with Poggle the Lesser.
That's cool.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a good little foreshadowing tidbit
the
to
Lesser?
remind you what
That's his
franchise
name. Yeah, that
you
is
were
his
part
name.
of.
Whose name? Who are we talking
Poggle the
about?
Lesser.
He's the general of those
I will pull the
Geonosians.
picture.
I have no idea.
He becomes he gets more focused in the Clone Wars. He becomes like
Yeah.
a villain.
Are we
This
So,
guy.
if you had
are we
watched
not,
the Clone
Are we not
Wars-
talking about that scene where like the Death Star blueprints are in front of Palpatine and he turns around?
That's in the third movie.
That's in the
That's
third
I
one.
don't even
Sith.
remember the Death Star being in. This
Yeah.
No, this is
Yeah, it's
like,
there
he
on
shows him
it's
that
on
Dooku,
Geonosis. Yeah.
This guy.
I remember him now. I don't remember Death Star being.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
see?
there it is.
Yep.
Bam.
Wow.
Is it?
That guy.
Yeah.
Because
Because
Uh-oh.
in Clone Wars, there's a number of episodes on Geonosis,
Yes.
and they focus on like the leadership of the Geonosians, and there's this really, I mean, like, again, Clone Wars is really great, but there's this also, and you really see the arc of Anakin during the Clone Wars going from where you see him in the second movie to start to become like almost a Sith Lord at that point, like developing that sort of evil dark side tendencies.
Oh,
You see
yeah.
a lot of that in the Clone Wars,
especially
And
the later seasons.
yeah, and there's this one really great episode with Poggle the Lesser, and he's interrogating Poggle, and Poggle's like not saying anything, and he's basically like, I know you're a Jedi, you can't like hurt me, like you can't like torture me, and he basically is like, he tells like 3PO to like shut the door, and he starts choking him, like physically choking him, and he gets like really intense look on his face, because at this point Padme is kidnapped in the Clone Wars, so I'm like, back to the attachment, right? And he's physically choking and like holding him up, and it's a really awesome, like compelling scene. It's a huge part of his character development, and that's Paul the Lesser that he's choking his wife on. So.
The only other big thing that I didn't the only thing I didn't really like, other than the emotion stuff, which we've already been over, is the wedding scene at the end. That was kind of lame. Like,
Another parade.
yeah, like,
I didn't mind it as much because it had more meaning to it.
yeah,
It was
it's
their secret
it
wedding
was
and it had
brief.
to be in secret because they're going against the Jedi Council.
And plus, it's
Fair.
it's a stand-in for them having sex. It's like the post-coital,
Okay.
yeah. I don't know. It's kind of just like, oh, let me grab your hand with my robot hand. Yeah.
Gross.
All right. Slaughtering Tusken Raiders. That was cool.
That was
Yeah.
cool.
It was a big part of his character development.
ha ha. So yeah, overall, I think it was more interesting and more enjoyable than Phantom Menace.
I think it's more enjoyable from a comedic standpoint because
Okay,
I
sure.
think the silliness was more silly.
Miss Patel, please come to the office. Miss Patel, please
Dang.
come to the office.
Okay.
All right.
I hope he gets to the office.
I really do. Really do.
Should we move on to the
Yeah.
Avenger of the Sith?
Yep.
Okay, so for me, the first two prequel movies, I don't like them. The third film is an okay movie.
Yeah.
Does not hold a torch to the original trilogy, of course,
Candle.
but it's just like an average movie versus a bad movie.
No, I would say like I ranked it pretty high. I don't have my like.
Yeah,
exact ranking
I had
in
Rogue One below this.
So I thought it was a really solid film.
Yeah, Avengers of the Sith is awesome.
Yeah. Like we said earlier, some of the lightsaber fights were like.
Bad.
Like,
They were bad. They were not.
like they were just trying to be flashy and stuff.
Yeah, flashy and way too long. Mustafar was like, that's like 20 minutes, right? Of just.
Yeah, it's definitely too much. Another problem I had, because I was recently rewatching Avengers of the Sith.
For May the 4th.
Actually, me and Sean were going to, but then Sean, was that night you fell asleep?
Yeah.
Yeah, he just fell asleep at like 10.
10, so early. God.
But
There's just like.
But yeah, one thing is like I did not like a lot of the scenes from like that beginning sequence, especially after Sidious, after Count Dooku was killed, and then they free Palpatine. At which point it's like, you really want Palpatine to be gone because he doesn't do anything, but he has to just be there for the plot. So he's just like running around with him in the ship, and then he like there's a whole thing when they're like in the elevator shaft and they're falling, and he's like holding on to Anakin's leg, and he's like he's like yelling and stuff because he's like trying to be like just like a senator or the chancellor, but like it's just kind of ridiculous because he's Darth Sidious. He's the Dark Lord of the Sith. He's like the most powerful man in the universe. And he's just like, it's just silly. It's just really silly.
Yeah.
What did you think about Dooku's death, by the way?
I liked Dooku's death a lot.
Do it!
Like, that was like, and you see in the Clone Wars, like, you know, Sidious manipulating Anakin a lot. And then this is like the culmination where he gets him to like take a life.
Yeah.
Like, that's it, you know, like that's the point which he has him.
Yeah, like, I mean, the beginning part, it's kind of random where it's just like, oh, Chancellor Palpatine's been captured. Okay. So I know that there's going to be a Clone Wars season 7 and stuff, but I wish they went into that from the Clone Wars so we see how he gets captured and all this stuff. And then it begs the question, why didn't the Separatists just kill Palpatine? Because if you analyze that from a Republic standpoint, not from like a plot, like us knowing he's the Sith Lord, if we analyze that from just the Republic standpoint, why wouldn't they just kill him?
I mean, it's important that we know that because now we know he's orchestrating this whole thing.
Right.
He orchestrated his own kidnap. He's the one who's pulling all the strings, you know, from the
Yeah,
Separatist standpoint. So he's going to be the one who's telling him, just kidnap this guy.
Right.
We need him as a pawn or whatever.
Yeah. No, but I feel like the Republic and the Jedi should have questioned it more than just going like, oh yeah, he was just kidnapped. Now we have to go get him.
Mm-hmm. And there's more. There's a lot more setup in the book for Revenge of the Sith. Like the whole first few chapters are going into like how Grievous like pulled off the kidnapping heist.
All right.
Again, if you really knew the lore, you would know that.
This is important.
I know. I'm just making fun of you. It's like your catchphrase. Again, if you saw Attack of the Clone Wars.
Hey, it's a good show. You guys have to watch it.
Yeah, and then the crash scene was kind of silly.
Oh yeah.
Like the scene crashing, and then again, it's just silly to see like the Dark Lord of the Sith like as the crowd going. It just doesn't.
The space battle over Coruscant was kind of cool. I mean, some of the dialogue again was kind of like, really, like, Master, you're so bad at flying. Like, okay, do we really need to have Anakin yelling at Obi-Wan about being a sucky pilot?
You should have seen me when I was 9.
But like, Grievous was cool. His flagship was pretty cool. Like the bodyguards, Magna Guards.
I think Again, not looking at the expanded lore. Just in this movie, I think actually Grievous was kind of just there.
He was just kind of being there to be cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, look, I'm a robot.
Yeah.
And I have 4 lightsabers. Ooh.
You got to admit that was pretty cool.
It was pretty
Yeah,
cool.
it was cool.
It was pretty cool, but pretty boring
Yeah.
at the same time from a story
Yeah.
perspective.
He's definitely a better character in Clone Wars.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll take your word
I
for it.
I was about to be like, yeah, you're right, until I remembered I just no. I don't know.
Oh man.
The scenes, like every single scene with Palpatine in this movie, besides the ones I already mentioned that were silly, were absolutely amazing. Like all the dialogue with him and Anakin.
You're missing a big one though, Neil.
Which one am I?
Can we
forgetting?
talk about his actual fight with Windu and,
Oh.
and crew?
Windowing crew.
So
Okay, Sean, do you seriously not know the names of any of the other Jedis?
I know Kit Fisto was there.
Mace Windu, Kit Fisto. There's 2 other ones.
Kiadi Mundi was not there, so
No.
I don't know
No,
the other
he's
ones.
not there.
Sais Tin, Horn Guy,
Mhm.
and you got Agent Kular,
Uh-huh.
who's the African American
Uh-huh.
Dathomir looking guy, but he's
Okay.
not from Dathomir.
So, my understanding is that they are all Jedi masters. Masters. Okay? They walk into Sidious's lair. Sidious, summons his lightsaber from nowhere. And they fight.
I am the Senate.
And yes, I understand that he's supposed to be the most powerful Sith of all time, and it's supposed to and the fact that he can overpower these masters is a display of that. But if you watch the actual shot, one of the Jedi is facing the wrong way. He's looking in the opposite direction as Palpatine stabs through him. Palpatine lunges forward.
With a spin.
He lunges forward with the spin, and this guy is facing the wrong direction. It dies, and they all just
He just got
the way it's
confused.
directed. It comes off. It comes off as if they're not even trying to defend themselves, as he just sort of waves his stick in that direction, and they die. I cannot watch that scene without laughing.
So what you have to do is you have to read the scene in the book.
Oh my!
And then it all becomes clear.
Why was he looking in the opposite direction?
Because you have to realize how powerful Palpatine is with the Force, and it's not just he's pretty good. He is a force to be reckoned with. Okay, so when he fights, you can't actually see him going at you. He's so fast. It's a blur. And so you think, maybe he went this way, so he goes to look there. No, he's fucking over there, and he's stabbing you. That's how good he is.
Have you fought him?
No, if you read the book, and it becomes clear once you get into the lore that there's only one Jedi who has even a chance at beating him at a lightsaber battle. And it's Mace Windu, and it's because Mace Windu is kind of a wild card in the Jedi Order, and in the Jedi Council, and he always has been. He's always been kind of an outsider, and he's always experimented with the Force in ways that are kind of taboo with the Jedi Order, and that includes dabbling with the dark side. He's the only Jedi, and he only got away with it because he was so high up in the Council. He's the only Jedi who has taken to studying the dark side, but in a very systematic and restrained way, to just try to siphon a little bit of the power of the dark side without getting lost in it. He's the only one who's done it. That's why his lightsaber is purple.
Wait, can we talk about that?
But that's why.
Hold on.
The real reason his lightsaber's purple is because Samuel L. Jackson was I want to stand out in the Geonosis.
Yes, I know.
Again, I haven't actually said this. I think I can't prove this, but to me it feels like a lot of these lore expansions were afterthoughts to fix what they messed up on. That's why it's purple.
So okay.
That's why.
The lore is.
That's why he's looking the wrong way, because he's too fast. Obviously.
So
if you knew.
The lore is a mixture of original material and then some dialogue with the movies. So like in the case of lightsaber, it's dialogue with the movies, but in the case of looking the other way, no, it actually wasn't. The book came out first.
Ooh.
And also, by the way, the like general idea of the Old Republic and the fall of the Republic because of Sidious's like maneuvering, that George Lucas had written about that before the original Star Wars came out. That was all like there way in the 70s. But like not all of it is just after the thought. There are instances like the lightsaber, but not all of it, and not the lightsaber battle part. Like another one of Mace Windu's powers is something called Shatterpoint, and which is why he had the ability to face Sidious, because Shatterpoint is this force ability that only Mace Windu has been able to cultivate. There are many force abilities that the Jedi have over millennia learned, and they're all in the archives. But one has to like spend a lot of time studying them, and you can only really pick and choose so many force abilities because you don't have all the time in the world to learn them all. So Mace Windu learned Shatterpoint, and it's this ability to use the force to see forward in time to an extent. You can see sort of like the probabilistic branches of time, and you can find like what the most likely thing to occur is, and that's what Mace Windu did during the entire battle with Sidious. Is he would do that. He can see forward in time, know where Sidious was going to go, and then block him. That's the only reason he survived and would have defeated Sidious if Anakin hadn't come in.
Sean, you don't look happy with this explanation.
It sounds so absurd.
But I mean, all this is absurd. It's all fantasy, but it's like part of it.
I mean, okay. So
It's just that, like, out of the population who watches these movies, how many are going to go on and read the novels? Less than like 0.5%, maybe. That's just a number I threw
Yeah,
out.
I don't know how we can.
But
They're popular books. They're
like
bestsellers.
it's hard to
Like the third book was a bestseller in the New York Times. I mean, a lot of people read them. It's not like some super niche.
still consider all the people who have seen this movie. Like, I think it's like a really awful decision to only explain these things in the books that no one reads. Like, I don't think that saves these movies, and that's why that this is valid, and that's why, because like he can see into the future, and because he's like so fast that's why he's turning the wrong way. I think that should have been touched upon in the films in order for it to be like a valid excuse.
Well, what are you gonna have, a 7-hour film? Like, how much can you get into?
No, but you can even just like
They're-
demonstrate that he's so fast. Like, because like the way it's shot, he doesn't seem that fast, but you're saying he is that fast, meaning that's just a flaw in how they shot it.
So I mean, like that
Right.
one. Okay, yeah, that one part of the battle is silly, but like you don't have to know the books to just see that Mace Windu overpowered Sidious. Like somehow Mace Windu was more powerful. He was
Yeah.
able to do it. Like that's kind of
That's fine.
that's all you need moving forward for the movies. And then if you know it, then you get a little more out of it.
That's a
if you
good
know
point.
why.
I'm not too concerned about them not touching upon Shatterpoint in the films, but a lot of supplementary details, like Guy turning the wrong way. What on earth?
Yeah, you're right. It looks silly in the movie for sure.
Let's see.
And like his dumb scream as he spins towards them.
Yeah!
like a pterodactyl.
Plus, like every time there was a close up on Ian McDermott's face during the battle, it looked a little silly because he was just like contorting himself and like he's a Shakespearean actor. What he's good at is like dialogue and delivering that, and like he's not like a combat actor, by any means.
Yep.
Oh, and he's back in Rise of Skywalker.
Shh, don't talk about that.
Paul doesn't like to like know anything about the movies before he goes in, so he hasn't seen the trailer or anything.
Nope. Okay. Let's see. Utapau was pretty cool, or Utapau, with Grievous and Obi-Wan.
What?
When they go to the planet with Boga and...
Oh, that's the planet's name?
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
Utapau, isn't it?
Yeah, Utapau, whatever. That was pretty cool. I like that
Hey,
stuff.
Sarah.
Hey.
Cody was cool. Kashyyyk was okay. It was solid. I like the droid and Wookiee fights.
Yeah, Chewbacca's old.
Yeah, Chewbacca. That
Although actually, okay, he's old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sarah, where did you rank this movie in your...
This was my least favorite of the three.
Really?
No, this was.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
you,
it was.
You had Attack of the Clones as the worst.
No, I don't remember actually.
Yeah, you did.
Oh, I did have Attack of the Clones is the worst. Yeah. I don't know.
What don't you like about it?
It just didn't interest me, to be honest. I don't know. That was like it. Like I said, I don't really have a solid basis for hating, for hating the movies in general. Obviously, they're just garbage. Like the plot and the execution, but like individually ranking them amongst themselves, the only criteria I have for is, oh, this entertained me, and oh, that was pretty good, and I don't know, I just wasn't interested, and since I don't know all the lore and haven't seen it, the Clone Wars.
And I think that's
I don't know.
That's a valid way to like sort of look at these movies as a whole. Is how did it make you feel?
Yeah.
Because
they're movies. They're here
goal.
for entertainment
Right.
value, and I don't know.
Right, and for most people that watch this movie, they're only going to think of it as a whole.
And I will concede the end of this movie was probably one of my favorites of the Star Wars movies, I guess. Just because I really liked the whole thing with with Padme giving birth and then Anakin becoming Darth Vader. Just that whole thing with she dies and then he gets the helmet put on.
No.
So in both of the ways, it's interesting because they're both creating life. Obviously, Darth Vader has risen, and then as well as Luke and Leia, but then also they're destroying a life because Padme dies, and then so does Anakin. I don't know. I just like that parallels and the going back and forth between them. That was really interesting, and that was one of the only really redeeming qualities, I guess, just because the rest, I don't know. Yeah. I just thought it was boring. Yeah.
I mean, it was overall pretty good.
Yeah. And I will admit that the way that Palpatine seduced Anakin to the dark side was done much better than in the originals.
Yeah.
Because in the originals, the Emperor was kind of just like, you should be on the dark side.
Yeah.
Luke was like, oh, maybe I should be on the dark side.
Though he was also setting up the battle between him and Vader.
Right.
But yeah, no. I mean, Ian McDiarmid was one of the best actors in the prequels. Like, absolutely. And he really killed it in the third movie.
Ewan McGregor was pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
What's that?
No, he was definitely one of my favorite Ewan McGregor.
I definitely love Ian McGregor, but Palpatine was awesome.
Bail Organa was pretty cool in this movie. At the end, I think that was a good setup into New Hope. Yes, Sean?
The timing does not work.
No, yeah.
This is with the way Revenge of the Sith is set up, that means that New Hope is only 18 years later? Which that's not a short amount of time, but it's not a very long amount of time.
Yep.
New Hope makes it seem like they've been at this war for 100 years.
No, I never say that. They only.
I mean, they never say that explicitly, that number, but it just feels like
this
a
has
long
always been how it's
time.
been.
No one remembers the Force anymore.
Well, it's like they.
Or look at Obi-Wan's age in Revenge of the Sith, and look how old he is in New Hope.
Yeah, I mean
that should be a 30-year difference, not a 15.
That for sure, you're right. But it's somewhat makes sense. When Obi-Wan in New Hope talks about how he fought with your father in the Clone Wars, there'll only be so many years.
Okay,
ago,
you know what? You're right. 100 is too big of a number to throw around.
It was just a generation ago, basically, and the fact that Leia was the Republic still existed to a certain extent during A New Hope. There was that point where basically say finally the last vestiges of the Republic have been dissolved and we have iron grip on the galaxy. So it was still clear that that transitionary point was going on and concluded by the beginning of the fourth movie of The New Hope.
Any other stuff that you guys have? I mean, Yoda on Dagobah, he's just this is a cool planet. Yeah. That was kind of dumb.
They implied that Obi-Wan was able to speak to Qui-Gon.
Oh yeah.
At the end. which
Right.
was like, okay,
Well,
that guy.
They set that up
Ooh.
in the Clone Wars.
Well, they implied that that's how he learned how to be a Force ghost
Right.
for Luke later.
Yeah, the only thing that stinks about that is that they didn't have Qui-Gon in Return of the Jedi at the end with everybody else, which was kind of sad. But, you know, he didn't get invited
In the
to that
edit.
party.
In the edit.
There should be another edit just for that.
Qui-Gon shows up.
Oh. No, I think it was a pretty solid movie. There was only a few nitpicking, dumb stuff. The emotion, like you guys have been saying, wasn't as bad in this one.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, I think it was just a good
No,
conclusion.
I'm still a huge fan of at the towards the end when they find Anakin and they run into each other's arms and she's like, I don't know what to believe about here. He said you killed younglings. He's like, that's just what you want. He wants you to believe. And then Obi-Wan comes out of the ship and he goes from 0 to 100 in 4 seconds. He goes from, it's just what he wants you to believe, to, you're with him! And it's like, what the hell? And he's like force joking her, and Natalie Portman is standing there, no struggle on her face, and she's like, please. Let go of her. I'm like, what do you mean let go? He's not even holding her.
I mean, it wasn't
Anyway.
it wasn't a full Force choke. If it was, her neck would have snapped pretty easily. I mean, it was one of those like, I'm playing with you kind of jokes.
No, I.
Oh, one of those. Oh, one of those. One of those. I
No,
know.
he was
Okay.
holding back. I looked.
It
to
was
see,
one of those
but
guys.
she didn't even look remotely afraid or like wasn't struggling or gasping for breath at all, and she faints as soon as he lets go. And I'm like,
She's also pretty pregnant.
where?
Also, is it?
She has no baby bump.
Was
Hold
it-
on.
She does,
Was
I
it
think.
trying to say that like he was forcing her hands to choke herself? Like, why were her hands around her neck?
Because
I'm
she
just
was-
curious.
I think that's just a
sincerely
reaction.
don't know.
Yeah,
That's
because
just a reaction.
every time you're being choked, you're like
Yeah.
trying to.
It's just an instinct.
Okay.
Like that happens to people like when they're choking on something on their like food or something.
Yeah,
they
that's
actually
the
do that.
universal
see.
sign for choking.
Yeah.
So if you're choking, do this.
I mean, I
Paul, you better put a visual in there. I want people to know what to do if they're choking.
Okay,
more,
Sarah.
more important about the choke is the fact that Palpatine was able to convince Darth Vader that his choking killed her, when really it was the childbirth
Yeah, that was the other thing
and the
too.
combination of other stuff.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Dude, jeez.
I had a hair elastic on.
What else happened in this movie?
I don't know. Was it this one?
Order 66 was cool.
Oh, never mind.
Oh. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's become a meme, which has made it because memes just degrade everything in their paths. They're just like
No, the
they're
sand.
like a monster.
the sand
They
meme
just,
was pretty
they just
good.
feed on greatness and turn it to rubble.
Execute Order 66.
How ironic.
You know, one scene I really liked was when the arrest of Palpatine was ongoing and Anakin was sitting in the Jedi Council thinking. He was just like looking out and like the music was playing, and then also Padme was like looking out her window, the music was playing.
Again,
it was
parallels.
really interesting that like pause was there. I really liked that.
Alright, what about Yoda and Palpatine's fight?
There was more force involved.
Yeah.
Because he lost his lightsaber. That's something. But
Yeah.
I don't
still,
think Palpatine should have had a lightsaber just to begin with in the entire movie.
yeah, that would have been a great parallel if both Yoda and Palpatine did not have lightsabers.
Yeah.
Mm.
It was a little silly to have it like in the Senate room and like throwing around like the Senate seats.
I think so.
I mean, it looked cool, I think, but I don't know. I feel like those like high level force battles should be like more like subtle and intellectual. They shouldn't just be throwing shit at each other.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
like,
that would be an interesting like duel if they're just like
just
standing.
staring at each
they
other.
could figure out something interesting. I
Yeah.
think.
Like, yeah, I feel like it'd make more sense with the lore, but like visually, people would be like, "This is boring."
Maybe.
Like just two people just staring at each other, like, like,
It would have to be carried by interesting dialogue.
yeah,
You would
or
have
like,
been the most emotion in the entire.
or like mental
prequel
images or
trilogy.
Yeah.
something. But like, I don't know.
Or squinty eyes.
The squinty
to show
eyes.
moments of discomfort when they're losing the battle.
And again, like, it's just too much when you're going back and forth between two very long fights.
Yeah.
Between Mustafar fight and the Throne Room
Dude,
fight.
there were so many duels in that battle. Like, I've looked it up, and, like, the amount of duels in that battle is, like, all the other duels combined. Like, in all the other movies.
I did like how, when Yoda like approaches Palpatine, he has like the Imperial Guard in front of him with the red outfits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
those are
was
good
that was really cool.
Yeah.
Like the Empire is starting to form, and you
Yeah.
can see that physically.
And I liked Yoda's just like and just
Yeah.
like, smashed them on the ground. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
was good.
Yeah.
That was What about Obi-Wan? Like leaving Anakin to die, even though he doesn't.
I thought that was. I don't think he would have done that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would have just killed him straight up, like made sure he was dead.
Well, that and also the like mercy killing. Dude burned half to death. Like
Yeah.
that he wouldn't have done that.
Yeah,
For
very
someone he
cruel.
has trained for so long and has become so close to and is considered a friend, he says, I thought you were my brother.
Mm-hmm.
And he just goes, he looks at him, sees him catching fire, and is just like, well, catch you on the flip side.
I hate you.
Yeah, exactly. So, I.
Practically like goes up to him and like pushes him towards the lava a little bit more, then goes away.
I have the high ground. It's over, Anakin. I have the high ground. What?
Yeah, also what a strange way to end the battle.
Yeah.
It just I have the high ground.
Plus-
like that's so
You're
what
like,
a
okay,
boring
that's.
Plus, I'm pretty sure I recall a time in The Phantom Menace when Obi-Wan definitely did not have the high ground
Right.
and still came up on top. So
No, and
yeah,
and
Darth
like,
Maul just kind of
however-
stares and gets cut in half.
I do find that is pretty interesting because having the high ground is a tactic used in battle, and it's not usually something that you would say at the end, which I do find weird, which I think alludes to the fact that maybe Anakin isn't going to die because he is the high ground, but he hasn't won. I mean, yeah, Obi-Wan hasn't won.
Right.
I mean, like ultimately, I feel like it's just to sort of be there as a showcase for Anakin's sort of hubris now that he's like infused with this power of the dark side, that he really thinks that despite all of the like tactical disadvantages of like where they were spatially, that he could still overcome.
Yeah, like, I mean, okay, so Mythbusters did a thing, and they showed that the high ground doesn't actually help you in battle.
Yeah, I loved that
What?
episode.
How do
Yeah.
you test that?
Also,
Okay, whatever. Keep going.
So if Anakin had just jumped off his floating
it
little
sounds
platform,
exactly like you think.
Yeah.
if he had just jumped off his floating little platform onto the ground and walked up to Anakin instead of doing like a ninja flip over him and getting cut in like half, like he wouldn't have like lost.
Yeah.
Like what?
But again, I think Anakin was trying to showcase his power. Like I can do all these flips and shit, and like I can go all the way over you, and I can still beat you. Like,
Because we all know that the true show of power is flip rate.
No, but it is.
I mean, he's still young. He's still a kid. He was barely a Jedi Knight by the third movie.
He was showboating.
Yeah, it was just like, again, like, do we really need to see Anakin do a bunch of cool flips?
Yes.
Not really. Like,
That was the only thing he did.
Plus, if you
okay, Sarah.
if you go more into like the Sith lore,
Oh no!
that's one of the common themes of the downfall of the Sith, is that as they become more powerful, the hubris becomes more and more overwhelming, and they end up becoming cocky, and that sort of cockiness
that's fair.
ends up being the reason that the light side then comes back to balance.
No, because we saw that in Return of the Jedi with Luke, where Palpatine said, "Your friends are your weakness," and Luke says, "Your overconfidence is yours."
Yeah.
So that's fair.
Yeah, and then that's like one of the big themes with the Jedi Sith sort of balance.
Yeah. Do we got any more stuff to talk about Revenge of the Sith? Sarah, any more blaring issues that you want to yell about?
No.
Get some outro music ready.
I don't know.
I think so, Sean.
It's just there's too many fights and not enough story, and it was just I don't know.
But
Whatever.
I think that the non-fight parts were definitely much better than their true predecessors.
Yeah, but I feel like there wasn't as much emphasis on it.
Yeah.
It was mostly about the fighting.
Yeah, I think overall it was like a better executed movie. It did well to like show the fall of the Republic, show the fall of Anakin, the rise of Sidious and the Sith. And it's just enjoyable to watch. Like, there's much less of like those like ridiculous cringe moments in Revenge of the Sith than in the other two movies.
Oh, we gotta talk about the deleted scenes in Revenge of the Sith. Have you seen them?
Yeah, what did you want to bring up?
So you know the deleted scene where Anakin and Obi-Wan are like making gestures on their face, like, should we try this plan?
Yeah.
Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, why?
What?
Why?
I haven't seen the deleted
Oh, oh, that's my favorite deleted scene.
In the deleted scenes, for those of you guys that don't know, Anakin and Obi-Wan are deciding how they want to attack droids and stuff, and so they make gestures on their faces indicating previous plans they've come up with. So Anakin goes, do you want to do this plan? And he like rubs his face across his brow and stuff. And Obi-Wan's like, nah, let's try this one. And he like touches his ears and his... It's just like,
happy
why?
They cut that one.
It's pretty much like how in baseball, when the catcher like makes a signal to the pitcher, and then the pitcher throws that ball. Like, oh.
It's just like trying to show more like friendly banter between the two.
And
how
to show
close
that they
they've
have a
grown.
history.
Yeah.
Like, enough of a history to know these symbols.
Yeah.
But, like...
It's just so funny.
It's just like ridiculous.
It's, yeah.
Other deleted scene in Revenge of the Sith is Shakti dying.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Because they kill off Shakti 5
Shakti.
million times.
Shakti,
Yeah.
of course.
Like, they kill
that
her
was-
off in the
course.
2005-2006
Yep.
Clone Wars, they
Yeah.
kill her
Yep,
off in the
Shakti.
Clone Wars,
Yep.
and then they kill her off in
Yeah,
Revenge
and
of the
this
Sith.
was the one where she was sitting meditating
Yes.
in the room, right?
What?
Yep.
She's another random Jedi that you don't care
She's
about.
on the council. She's if you know what Ahsoka looks like, she's like the big one.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's red and she's got
I know
the
you're talking
blue.
about.
But yeah, I just feel like they should have just picked one way that she dies and then not.
Yeah. I
No,
was
she
fine with that
deserved
being
all of
deleted.
those.
And then there was another one at the battle on Grievous's ship, another deleted scene. It was like they cut their way into like
And
a
then they
water
went through
thing,
the like
and they're like
electro water.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just like,
yeah.
why? We gotta make our way to the mains of the ship. Like, okay. And they're like wading through water that's charged with electricity.
Huh, that sounds like something that they would put in only so that it could be video games.
Yeah.
Gotta overcome this obstacle.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think there are any like crucial scenes. Like it wasn't like the Attack of the Clones deleted scenes that maybe like would have made the romance a little better.
Right.
The deleted scenes here were just like, I mean, they're fun to watch. You should definitely watch them if you haven't seen them.
Okay. Sean, you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, well, with that, we have concluded our discussion of the Star Wars movies. For now. I'm sure we'll revisit them in the future. We still need to talk about Solo once Sarah watches Solo.
I'm sorry.
Sarah, watch the freaking movie.
No.
But until then, I think we're going to take a break from Star Wars content.
Oh, yeah.
We've
Nope.
Oh, that
talked
clarinet,
a
though.
lot about it. So
Yeah.
next week we'll talk about Endgame. After that, who
Can't
knows?
wait.
Maybe we'll peel that pineapple.
Oh, we gotta rip apart
And
that
eat
one.
those frozen grapes.
Yes.
Ah.
And you guys gotta watch Clone Wars, so we can talk about Clone Wars.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to end up. Like, please watch Clone Wars, and then after that, start reading the books.
I might tackle it this summer if I have time to. But
The
I
movie's
want to watch
the
Game of
series is
Thrones
good.
this
Yeah,
summer,
the
and I
series.
want to watch all of X-Men this summer. So I don't know.
Oh.
I'm kind of pressed on things to watch.
Have you watched X-Men, Sarah?
I watched the first one.
You should watch them. They're good movies.
Okay, so I
Alright.
think that's a good place to stop.
So thank you,
And-
Neil, for coming up and showing.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh.
Yeah, you provided some really vital information. I was not ready for that in-depth analysis.
Yeah. I feel
Oh
like
my
both of
gosh,
your opinions.
Opedius complex. Wow.
I feel like all of our opinions about these movies have changed with that in-depth analysis.
Right, I think so too.
Glad to
I
hear.
have more respect for the movies.
Glad to hear.
Still not that much.
I've
Hey.
just been indifferent.
Maybe if you see the Clone Wars.
Yeah, I think the more you get into it, the more you'll start liking them.
All right, and with
All right.
that, we will meet up again next week.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.